this is going to be a really long time, and I was really misinformed. I just don't think that's right. I still, even if other people have had that experience, I don't think it's right.
I was right there for the action.
Laying around up there.
Everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I have my husband Tony with me, and we are going to do a sit down about our birth story and go over everything for you. If you haven't seen our delivery vlog, I will put that down below or in a card. Definitely check that out. But today we're going to kind of like do a reflection on everything. And if you don't already know, I was induced at 41 weeks. So that is just the perspective we have of this. It was an induction. I have a feeling that's very, very different from anything else. So if you are being induced, or you just want to see or hear about this kind of experience, that's what we're going to be talking about today. And I did take notes during the process, which I'm very grateful for, because it was even a blur, even though like...
You took notes?
I did. I took notes. With inductions, you have to call the hospital ahead of time, and basically they'll tell you to come in or not. It's not a guarantee, even if you have an appointment, which we had for the 16th.
We were supposed to call at 3:30. Normally you call at 4:30. We're an hour away from the hospital, so they told us to call at 3:30 to see if we would come in at 6.
So, yeah, 6 or 7, I think.
They said no.
They said no.
Call back an hour later.
They were really packed. They didn't have beds.
They were busy apparently.
Yeah.
Call back an hour later. Call back an hour later. They said no. Call back in an hour. Okay, we called back in an hour, and they said get here in an hour, and we live an hour away. So we were kind of expecting not to go in that night.
Yeah, we really thought, after being told twice to not come in, we really thought, okay,
you would assume we would have been prepared.
And then, of course, I was Googling, and it was like, it could be 1 day of a wait. It could be 2 days. It could be 3 days of waiting. So when they were like, yeah, okay, come in, I think we were kind of like in
rushed
shock.
Around for 45 minutes here.
Yeah.
Finishing up everything because we thought we'd have time. And then we left, and we were 20 minutes late. Not bad. We
were late. We were rushed, which you don't think would happen with an induction. But when they say, come right now, you live an hour away. Yeah. Even though our bags were packed and everything, there's still stuff with animals.
They've been packed for a month and a half at that point.
Yeah. Got to the hospital around 8:30, and to our surprise, I was actually already having contractions. I just couldn't feel them.
We didn't know that.
We did not know that, but I did have a few labor signs that day and then the day before. And through this whole process, I kind of feel like, honestly, I would have gone into labor naturally within a couple of days. Looking back on it now, I don't think an induction was quite what I imagined. I don't know. It wasn't exactly the experience that I enjoyed, honestly. It's still a positive experience. I'm healthy, baby's healthy, but
I'm healthy.
But it's just, I don't know. It wasn't like great or anything like that. Right?
It wasn't a storybook.
Yeah, I don't know.
Story.
We'll get into that, but yeah. So when I got there, they were doing all the monitoring. And that is something that I did not expect. I did not expect to be so strapped in with monitors all over me. And it got worse as I progressed, where I just felt like I could not move.
More. And
the second I moved, they would rush in and say, oh, the monitor moved. So then I felt so guilty for moving. So then that night when I was supposed to sleep, I couldn't sleep because I was so anxious. I couldn't get up to pee because
you did.
But I felt like guilty.
But every time we had to call the nurses in to reposition the...
Yeah, and I ended up feeling guilty, which now looking back, I realized, like, don't feel guilty about anything. They're, like, literally just there to help you. But...
Our nurse was just for us. Like, she didn't have anyone else. She was her only job that night, other than helping other people, like other nurses with things, was to take care of you.
Right. And I don't know. There's a few things from that night I didn't expect. When we got to the hospital, they strapped me up in all these monitors. And then they started the cervical ripener, I believe. For the induction, there's all these different methods that they use, and cervical ripener is generally one of the first ones. It's just something they put inside of you, and...
There's 2 different kinds.
It's supposed to ripen your cervix.
We didn't know there was 2 different kinds.
Of what?
Cervical ripeners. There's one that takes 4 hours and one that takes 12 hours.
We chose the 12-hour ripener thing, and you're supposed to sleep throughout the night, not have any contractions.
Well rested.
Not have anything, going on until the morning and be like all rested. And that was not the case because I was so anxious about being all strapped in. I started getting contractions, which I thought were like around 1 or 2.
Like 2:30-ish, I think.
I think they started around 2:30 a.m. I started getting very bad contractions. And then my notes say that I woke up at 4:30 with really bad ones. So I think they started at 2:30, and then at 4:30 a.m. it was like, whoa, this is bad. I remember like just focusing on something in the room, like on the ceiling, to like try to get through each one. Yeah, my notes say 5:15 ordered epidural.
It was before that because they didn't come until 6:30. It was like 2 hours.
Could be, I don't know.
I'm pretty sure you asked at like 4:30. And then at 6:30, which was 2 hours later, you got the epidural.
Which that's fairly early to ask for an epidural during the process of this, but normally people don't get contractions this early. And I came to the hospital already having contractions, so that's why I think like my body was already in the works.
Getting there.
I think it was. I think it would have been any day, if not even the next day, that I would have went into labor. So things were kind of escalated in that way. And yeah, I got the epidural pretty early because those contractions were bad in the middle of the night. The epidural was not bad, I don't think. What was your take on it from someone who like saw it?
Well, I actually didn't see it
You didn't look?
happen. I was on the other side of you. One, you had to stay still during a contraction because it takes longer than the time in between contractions to do it.
It wasn't painful. I was scared for the epidural before going into labor. And it was not painful. It was hard to stay still during contractions. That's the biggest challenge, I think, with an epidural. And I remember the nurse had one hand, Tony had the other hand, and I was just like breathing and focusing to stay still. It was a lot of pressure and almost like cooling feeling sensation in my back, but it was not painful.
But it wasn't 100% on both sides.
We'll get to that, yes. We got the epidural at 6:30 in the morning, and then it was smooth sailing, but boring. Like, I didn't feel a thing after that. That epidural is crazy. Do you remember you were looking at the monitor and like the contractions were like crazy, and I didn't feel a thing. It's a shame too because I think, well, I don't know if it's a shame, but like those contractions I had in the early hours of that day, I think I could have gotten through if I could have gotten up and moved, and like all these things we learned, like how to cope with the contractions, how to move your body and stuff. I couldn't do any of it because I was so strapped in and they wouldn't let me move. So that was frustrating. I kept saying to you, I didn't realize I wouldn't be able to move at all. I didn't realize I'd be like so stuck in this bed.
And that could just be, I'm assuming you would get strapped up if you just came in for contractions too.
But then I think you can get up. I think it was the cervical ripener that you couldn't be up and about. It was the induction process, I think, is what made me be so stuck in bed. For me to be stuck in bed too, my personality is like, this is horrible. I hated that part of it.
She sits still for about 15 minutes a day.
Yeah, this video is the longest probably I sat today. So we spent the rest of the next day pretty bored. And they just kept monitoring me. And I couldn't eat. I was on
clear liquid diet.
I was on a clear liquid diet. It was just glorious. And then we got the second round of induction, which was these balloons that they put in you.
The balloons.
That apparently are pretty painful, but because I already had the epidural, I didn't feel a thing.
Nope. There's one balloon above the cervix, inside your uterus, and then one in the opening of the cervix to stretch it. The one up top is supposed to mimic the head of the baby pushing down on it, and the other one's supposed to stretch it.
Yeah. So the ripener wasn't enough. They had to move on to that. That was at 1 o'clock the next day. So we're now on to September 17th. 1 o'clock I got the balloons.
You didn't even feel it.
I felt pressure.
Pressure, but no.
Pressure. Pressure is just a silly word to say, a little uncomfortable.
I feel something. I don't know what it is, but I feel
it. It's like, you just feel like, oh, like I don't like that, but it's not pain. That's the best way I can say it. It's, yeah. Same thing for when they checked my cervix. I heard horror stories about that. So if you're watching this and you're about to go into labor or whatever, like you're pregnant, Don't be scared to get your cervix checked.
Relax.
Yeah, just relax. I think that women get so tense and then those muscles tensen up. So just relax. I had 3 people because I thought at first maybe the person who I had just was delicate or whatever.
She was like 4'11".
Tiny.
Yeah.
I had 3 different people. It did not hurt. It was not comfortable, but it did not hurt. Like it wasn't painful. 6 p.m. then. So we're almost 24 hours total at the hospital. The doctor came in and was going to break my water, which is another method for induction. When she came to do that, she was waiting for the tool to do so, and my water broke naturally.
Well, she's playing around up there. But
Yeah, I'm not putting She was playing, what is this?
That's what she was doing. She was feeling it, how thin it was, and it popped as she was doing it instead of using the hook that they normally do.
So would you say she broke my water?
Yeah, she did, but it was by accident. She wasn't trying to. It was that ready. It was ready to.
It was about to go.
Yeah.
Playing around up there.
It's just I started to feel contractions again. I don't remember that. Oh yeah, I kept hitting my button for more epidural drugs. They must have been getting really bad because I was starting to feel them through the epidural.
Yeah, you did. I think you felt them for the rest of the time, but it wasn't bad at all.
Okay, so then that brings us into the nighttime, which is when things really started to escalate.
After the water breaks, they really, really pay attention to the baby because it's uncomfortable for them. They're not in the sack floating around anymore. And every way Michele laid, the baby's heart rate was dropping during contractions.
Not good.
That happened, but it was going too far down. So Michele couldn't move on her own. So me and the nurse kept flipping her around from side to side to side.
I forgot about that.
To try to figure out how to do it.
Oh, gosh.
So that the baby was fine. And we finally got it when you were on your right side.
Essentially, the epidural was not placed
Just so close.
evenly where both sides of my body were numb. Only one side was. I fixed it in the beginning, but I couldn't fix it at the end. And then I started to feel everything on that side.
Left side.
Yes. Another thing that I didn't know about epidurals. Obviously, I've never felt what it feels like to have the lower half of my body numb before. I never realized how heavy it feels because it's like that's not like your body. So, but it's still that weight, and it was so heavy, and I couldn't move. And again, I already spent how long in the freaking hospital bed hating it, and now I couldn't move my own body. And yeah, the nurses and Tony had to move me. How many times? Tons of times. Because then my back was hurting because the epidural was wearing off and I was having other pains from being in bed so long.
Just uncomfortable.
Just very uncomfortable. I already didn't have sleep for so long, and then trying to move my body and lift my upper half of my body so many times, I had like the biggest workout in my life. I felt like on 0 sleep.
You were trying to do chest dips.
Yeah, right?
Push yourself
Before even giving birth. So I was just so exhausted. They kept trying to move me to get the epidural, I think, going, right? Is what was going on. And it was exhausting. So they laid me back over on the side that they were trying to get numb again. But it wasn't long
for
enough.
like a half an hour. That was it.
Because then it was time to start pushing soon. And do you remember I was shaky?
Yeah.
They said that was nerves and hormones. I was so shaky. All right, so then it was time to start pushing, and this is also something I did not expect. I was naive in this, that pushing takes so long. I legit thought it would be like a 15-minute process at the most.
Averages 1 to 2 hours.
I thought that the hard part was all the contractions and everything before, which it is, and then pushing was like I said, like 15 minutes. No. And I was slowly starting to gather this information as I was pushing and realizing that, like, there was no doctor there. It was just the nurse and Tony. Everyone was very casual.
Because nothing was happening yet.
Then, like, 5 minutes went by, 10, 15, 20 minutes went by, and I was like, I think this is going to be a really long time, and I was really misinformed.
Little under 2 hours.
I was very wrong. So I was not prepared in that sense at all, I felt like, for that experience. I didn't know there was like a method to do that. They teach you, and
where to
how to do it, where to do it. Like, it's an actual
She did great,
skill.
they said.
They did. They said I did
First
great.
try, she did great.
Yes, but then I started to get tired.
Mishi thinking that it's going to be 10 minutes for some reason.
I
Put
don't know.
150% into the first, 6 pushes and then was exhausted for the rest of the time.
I thought that's all it would
You need
take.
to pace yourself.
It's a marathon, not a sprint. Had no idea.
Yeah.
Went all out.
She was exhausted by the end.
I also was on no sleep.
But she still did it.
It's like you are having a serious battle with your brain where part of you is like, that's it, I'm done. Like, it's too hard, I'm giving up. And the other part's like, no, you have to get this baby out of you. You have to get it out of you alive. And this like mental game basically is what labor is. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. And this is before I feel like all the pain started, which was my back pain.
Yeah, I was at the very end. Well, about halfway.
This is when I got delirious, so why don't you take it?
Yeah, you started getting back pain while you were pushing about halfway through. So 45 minutes in.
I actually, from what I remember, it was, I would push and then it was like this flush of back pain right after being done the push.
I think the baby was pushing on a nerve. Because at one point, I don't know if you've ever had sciatic nerve. It shoots down your butt into your leg. And that was happening to her. She doesn't remember it, but I do. Delirious. But yeah, it was shooting down, and that means it was pushing on one of your nerves. She was.
And the doctors kept saying, like, oh, it's a burning sensation of like, the baby coming out. And I'm like, no, I don't even feel the baby. It's not the baby. It's not a burning sensation. It was the sharpest pain I've ever felt in my life in my back. Contraction would hit, so I'd push through the contraction, and then I'd be, like, thrown with this pain after that. And then I would vomit. Yeah, the vomiting was something I did not expect either. Did not expect to vomit that much at all.
Apparently the doctor said it's very normal.
Very common. It's something with hormones and pain.
Well, you were getting pumped with, what's the drug called?
Pitocin.
Pumped with Pitocin. I was watching because I was holding one of your legs.
Also didn't expect that.
There was just one nurse and me.
Yeah.
I was watching her continuously every 15 minutes pump up the Pitocin the whole time you were pushing. So she started at 2 milligrams, I think. By the time you were done, you were at 16.
I did not expect to be pushing for an hour and a half with just one nurse and my husband in the room. Where he had one leg and she had one leg, and he was like an active participant.
I was on barf bag duty.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I had to go get them. They're hanging on the wall right next to it. So it must be pretty common.
And I remember in the moment being very annoyed by that, though. Like, that you were like a nurse. Like, that frustrated me with the hospital. But apparently it's very common.
Everyone we've talked to says that's normal.
Yeah.
So.
But I'm like, shouldn't it be like a nurse and a nurse? And like, he's just with me.
That's what it's like in the movies.
He's not getting paid. You don't know what you're doing.
In the movies, the guy is standing there going, it's okay, you're doing so good.
But I don't know, I just don't think that's right. Even if other people have had that experience, I don't think it's right.
I was right there for the action.
And then the last few pushes are the only times I felt that burning sensation that they said, or they thought that the pain I was having the whole time.
About the past half hour,
It was literally the last 2, I would say, pushes is I felt burning. But it wasn't bad, but it was just like, I don't know how to explain it. I just knew the baby was coming, and I was delirious. I was like, get it out of me. I was like falling asleep too.
Yeah, she nodded off a couple times in between pushes. At the very end, like around the hour and 15-minute mark. Before the doctors actually came in.
Exhausted.
She closed her eyes a couple times.
Were you worried?
No, you're fine.
You weren't worried?
No, I could see the monitor. Your blood pressure was fine. Your heart rate was fine. The baby was fine. You were just tired. Yeah.
And I remember thinking how I totally underestimated what women go through. How women should rule the world because it's the hardest thing in the world. I agree. I'm not kidding. The fact that any woman who has given birth, they have a power that no one knows. They should rule the world. I say that seriously. No offense.
None taken. I have no desire to rule anything.
It's crazy hard. Not to scare anyone. You can do it. I did it fine.
Yeah.
And then you have a brand new baby who takes up all of your energy and your time and love.
Yeah, so you don't get any sleep the next night.
Well, I was gonna say, so you instantly forget about how hard it is. Like, I
Yeah.
feel like when you, like, there's a reason for that. Like, it's the hardest thing in the world, but obviously, like, God wants you to keep having babies, and so it's like you have this brand new baby that is just like your whole brain is on, so you forget how hard it is. So that way you want to do it again. 'Cause it's like, look at the baby.
Little baby.
Look at the baby. So she was born at 1:33 in the morning. Tony cut the cord, and then they asked me to cut the cord again.
I did the first cut to get her disconnected from you, we'll call it. And then you did the final cut, so if she has a weird belly button, it's your fault. Because you had to do it left-handed.
She doesn't have a weird belly button. It's healed.
No, that's
It
funny.
looks great.
Mishi barely tore it all.
That's because, okay, if you're pregnant and you're watching this, like I watched birth stories and stuff, blah, to find out. Listen to your doctor because it's hard. You're in the moment and you want the baby out of you, but you have to listen to them because they can see what you can't. And she said, stop. I don't know why she said stop pushing, but now I do. It's because that way you won't tear as much. So really try to hone in and like listen to her voice and listen
Which
to
I'm
the
sure is
doctor.
basically impossible to do in that situation. I don't know how you did.
And that doesn't mean you're not gonna tear. Like, you know,
That's
it just happened to be that she said because I listened to her in this situation, I didn't tear so much.
Barely.
I barely tore. She said I had bragging rights.
The doctor said you didn't even want to call it a grade 1 tear, but she has to.
First degree.
First degree, whatever it's called.
Yeah. I tore other random weird places that have been causing me issues, but
Not the big one.
just Google it. just Google it.
But then, right after she was born, they like threw on your chest for about 15 seconds, and then they took her because she swallowed a lot of fluids, and they were trying to get it out of her.
That scared me.
And they were whacking the hell out of her
I know, that scared me because I was still
to get her
delirious.
to cough it up and stuff.
Oh.
And they kept screaming. Well, not screaming. They kept looking back. She's fine. This is fine. She just needs to get it out of her.
But I'm glad they did that because I was like genuinely really scared because I was
Yeah.
still so out of it. I had my baby, then they took my baby, and I was just like, what is going on? What is happening? A whole thing of like 10 people come into the room then when it's time to push.
Yeah.
You deliver baby, and then it's like little busy bees all
And
around
then
you.
everyone is sprinting around doing stuff.
Yeah, doing stuff to me, doing stuff to baby. It's crazy chaos then. Through this chaos and still being delirious, this nurse comes up to me, starts talking to me. This is how many diapers, what diapers that she should have. This is what she should be eating. Like this is what to look for. Like all this information she's telling me moments after I push a baby out of me.
Retained 0% of it.
I was like, what is what's going on? Then this is a whole other video, but then they're trying to get her to breastfeed, and that was not an enjoyable experience. There's a lot that I think, advocate for and speak up for now, going through it once. Which
Never know until you try.
people told me to advocate for myself, and I was like, well, what is that? I don't, like, what? What does that mean? I don't know what to advocate for, but what matters is I'm healthy. Baby's healthy.
Yeah.
Tony did great. You were very supportive and wonderful. And the end result is the same no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah, but now it seems like so in the past. Like, now that we have our whole life around our baby and everything,
It
like...
was like 4 or 5 years ago.
It feels like so long ago already. It does. She's, what, a little over a month old?
Like a month and a day or two.
Yeah. I'm like, when did I give birth? Like, what happened?
Question time.
All right, so we have a few questions from Instagram. I liked this one. She said, you believed your body was made for birthing, because I had said that. Like, I wasn't too scared because I knew, like, that's what women were meant to do. Meant to make babies. But was it scarier, less scary, or exactly as you expected? It was not scary. It was not scary. Well, there were scary moments, but it was just because I didn't know what was going on.
You were scared when the epidural didn't work on one side first?
Yeah. No, so I don't think it was scary. I think it was not what I expected. And induction is a whole other ballgame. And
Yeah.
obviously pushing, I had no idea what I was getting into. So
15 minutes, 3 pushes out.
That's what I thought. Are you going to be a stay-at-home mom? No. A lot of you already know this because I already talked about this. But actually, Tony is going to be a stay-at-home dad. Were there COVID restrictions at the hospital? Tony was the only one allowed with me.
That's going to change from hospital to hospital and like week to week right now.
Yeah.
So what we say doesn't mean anything to anyone else, but
this is very true.
There was masks everywhere besides in the room.
Yeah, we were allowed to have our masks off. They also did a COVID test on me. What has surprised you most about motherhood? Wow. This isn't about motherhood, I guess. This is just about knowledge in general. I'm used to being able to research and find a answer. And babies, there are 5 billion answers, and you have to choose as a mother which one is good for your baby. And that is not what I was expecting.
You can't find an actual answer on anything.
And I don't mean like moms talking forums. I mean actual doctors. There's different opinions per doctor. So you have to just use your mother's intuition and go with it with that.
Took us like a week to realize that, maybe 2 weeks to realize that you can't look something. You can look up stuff for ideas. That's great.
Yeah.
But not for actual answers to anything.
Yeah. The thing that surprised me most about motherhood, and this would go for you too, is how it takes a little bit to actually, you have to get to know your baby. Which you would think like it's your baby. It's natural. It's not. Like you have to get to know them, learn their cues, learn their routine.
I assumed all babies were the same. They're a baby. They do this when they're hungry.
Yeah.
They do this when they're
like it's like she had to get to know us. We have to get to know her, and it's an ongoing process.
And every day she's a different baby.
Every day she's a different baby. Yes.
Say hi, Rosemary.
We brought Rosemary here to say goodbye for the video. Hi, she just woke up. You have a sweet little dress on today. Oh.
Just still sleepy.
Those little burp. You're still sleepy. Say I wore a dress today.
Hi.
Be sure to subscribe if you're new. Yeah? Yeah? Say subscribe. I will catch you guys in my next video. Bye.
Booty, 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 rocking everywhere.
Booty, 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 rocking everywhere.
You have that on film.
Rocking everywhere. Rocking everywhere.